Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Christopher and I have another Sims 4 speed build for you today. This time on a 30 by 20 lot in Brindleton Bay, and it comes in at just about 98,918 simoleons, and I'm calling this one Solitude Lodge. And the reason for that is because my initial inspiration for creating this home was my liking of Henry David Thoreau. And if you don't know who Henry David Thoreau is, he was an American essayist, poet, writer of all types of genres, and he was an all-around pretty interesting guy. He loved nature, he loved being in nature. That was his thing, along with his pal Ralph Waldo Emerson. And at one point in Henry David Thoreau's life, he went and stayed at Walden Pond, which belonged to Ralph Waldo Emerson, and there he lived for 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. While he was there, he wrote all sorts of things about the nature that surrounded the pond, his experiences there, the spirit of nature that he felt while he was there. Very transcendental, and all around he is one of America's greatest writers and poets, in my opinion. And as an English major, we do spend quite a lot of time on Thoreau and Emerson, so I thought it would be really fun to build this sort of cabin in the woods inspired by everything that I know about Henry David Thoreau. Now, of course, he would not have the things that I include inside this cabin. In fact, the shack really that he lived in was more or less a square box, I would say probably less than 15 square feet. It's very, very small. You can look at pictures of it online. A very tiny place, but he was very content there for the time that he was there until he decided he did need to move back into the city closer to people. Now, it was really funny because as I was building the character, I did create the character for this build, and I named him Henry David. He actually ended up looking a lot like my husband. I had intended to create someone who looked more like the actual Henry David Thoreau, but I said, I kind of really want to play in this slot. So I created a young adult character, and he is by nature a lonely sim. He loves the outdoors, and he is an aspiring writer. So I thought that's the essential qualities of Henry David Thoreau. And I'm really going to play this sim. I think my goal is to have Henry David kind of break outside his shell and start to invite people over and see where it leads, because I would really like to actually play a game from start to finish, from, in this case, adult to death. And I've actually never played it to where the sim actually died of natural causes or from age, and I think that's really an interesting thing about this game, is that we can do that. Now, enough about Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Waldo Emerson and all those cool guys that lived out in the forest, and let's actually start talking about the build. I had a lot of fun building this house. I think in the end it turned out so cozy. Definitely a place where I would love to live or spend an autumn or just go out on the weekends. It's such a cozy lodge. There are a lot of woods and a lot of stone, and the landscaping is absolutely beautiful, because I imagine that this is a single sim living here. He is the loner type. He loves outdoors, so he has probably spent a long time perfecting the landscape around his home and making it just what he wanted. So I do spend a lot of time on the landscaping and making it look very pristine and sharp, and it doesn't look so grown over. And I do include a lot of planter boxes, that way Henry David can go out there and do some skill building. And as an aspiring writer, I did want to give some spots on the inside where he could take his computer and actually learn to write. I had a little bit of a drawback with the fact that I can't figure out how to skill up a sim by writing with pen and paper, but you have to have the laptop. I really wanted to make this house off the grid, but in the long run, I could not do that. I will build a house off the grid because I like that idea, and I know that that's a hot topic right now in the Sims community. It's building off the grid homes, you know, no electricity, no electronics, no modern sort of amenities, and just simply living off things that, you know, you would have to have if you had no running electricity or powers to the house, I guess. But now we're kind of skipping over a little bit here about the roof. I initially, in that top story, the loft style, which I love about this cabin, I knew right away that I wanted to do a loft style 1-bedroom cabin, but the roof was giving me some issues. So if you build the roof with a gabled roof like that, or even a half gabled roof, that flat side of the roof blocked in the loft style room, and I really wanted it to where if you were up in the loft room, you could look down into the main part of the house. But with the back side of that roof, it was blocking it, obviously. So in order to fix that, what I did was I put technically 3 roofs together, and I think maybe we have already looked at it, or you'll see me messing with it here in a minute. But essentially I just kind of made one small roof and put it at the right end of the house and drew out the left eave all the way up. So really the roof is not on the middle part of the house, it's just the eave making it appear as a roof. Now I like it because you can see down into the main part of the house, but an issue that arises when you do that is the game does not read that as a house having a ceiling or that room having a ceiling. Therefore, the natural light when it's daytime overpowers the inside lights, the electrical lights, and so you can't see that there are actually lights on until nightfall. Which, after I considered for a long time, I decided is perfectly okay, because someone like this living in a cabin would probably have these big windows and would probably enjoy the natural sunlight most of the time. Someone who enjoys to be around nature enjoys nature's natural light. So in the end, even though I did go back and forth, I decided just to keep it the way it was and let the natural light just be what you play in during the day. Now, when it does come nightfall, the lights do come on, and it really is so cozy in there because I use the seasons. Those lights there that you're seeing, they're kind of like a dimmer yellow light on the outside and a similar one on the inside. But in the end, at nighttime, it's really, really beautiful. And I had to speed things up too because I wanted to see what this cabin looked like during autumn. And I was not let down. It was actually so beautiful. The trees turned like a beautiful purple and maroon, and you saw that at the very beginning, and at the end I'll show some screen shots and a little short video of Henry David playing in leaves, but it turned out really beautiful. Right now I'm working on the landscaping. I put up this chimney right there, which I thought just really drew your attention to the front of the house. And speaking of the front of the house, what we're looking at now was my intended front of the house. And I rotated it in the very beginning so I could have better light to actually build. And then as I was coming around to this side of the house, I realized this is a really, really nice side of the house. So if you wanted, you could rotate the house on this lot and have this be the main entryway, because it does turn out very beautiful. But it's not intended, in my personal preference, to be the front of the house. The other side is. That's where I put the walkway and where I put the mailbox and the gate and all that. But of course, if you download this from the gallery, then you can change that up. So right now we've moved on to the inside, and I knew that I was probably going to have a little bit of trouble with the layout because it is pretty much a box with a box on top for the bedroom. And anytime you do something like that, you really have to figure out where's everything going to go, especially if you have an open floor plan like this one has. And I talked with my husband and I messaged some other people and was like, hey, where do you think the kitchen should go? Because that's really what I was concerned about. I knew that the living room was going to be near where the fireplace was, and I knew that the little writing area was going to be to the right as you walk in the front door. But the kitchen, I thought under the stairs, I don't know. But I drew one little piece of a wall right there by the door that you see, and then I put those 2 beams and the counter right there to kind of divide it and make it its own separate spot. And I really like the way that it turned out, and here in a minute you'll see that I add a sort of metal frame inside the wood beams around that counter, and it turned out so beautiful. And I think it's definitely something that you would see in a lodge. You would have that kind of mismatch of like woods and stone and metal. It's very natural, and I think if Henry David Thoreau were to come in here, he would probably be really shocked and hate the stove and all these types of things, but he would really love all the lumber that was included in this house. And throughout this build, I did use mainly woods, and I wanted to stick with that warmer tone because I wanted it to be cozy. I didn't want it to be too orange or too bright. But of course, if you download this from the gallery, as I said before, you can always change those things up. But I think for this particular one and for my personal preference, I wanted it to be very cozy and very warm, so I stuck with a lot of the darker woods. If you've watched my videos before, you probably see something that's coming up again, and that's these shelves on the wall that are filled with clutter. And I love doing that. I think there's something that's just much more homey about it. It's much more cozy. And for the sake of space in this small kitchen, I thought just having the open shelves with the essentials, you have the plates and the fruit and, those plants up there, which I think kind of look like herbs and some spices and sauces. I felt like that was so much cozier than having a lot of cabinetry. So I didn't add that in, but I guess you could if you wanted, but I think the shelf looks so much better. And I love this really rustic looking table. I'm not sure what pack it came with, probably Seasons or Outdoor Retreat, is that what it's called? But I think I do use mainly items from those, like the Outdoor Retreat or Outdoor Living. Seasons, I use obviously all the windows and doors are from Seasons, and a lot of the beams that I put up are from Seasons as well. Now, these items that you see me putting up now are in the debug catalog. And if you don't know how to get to the debug catalog, all you do is open up your cheat bar by pressing Shift and Control and C simultaneously and typing in db.showHiddenObjects. And when you do that, a ton more options, a ton more items appear which you can place throughout your house. Some of them are functioning and some of them are not. I believe most of them are not. Now, if you don't know about the current buzz going on, The Sims is going to be having an update soon, and from what I've researched and seen on other YouTube videos and just reading around on the internet, they are actually going to be unlocking like all of the debug items that they typically use around the world. So items that you find in the world when you're outside your home or out in the forest, for instance. Those items are going to become available, and I'm really excited about what all we can do with that, because I watched a video of them playing around with the items, and some of them are gigantic. Some of them are just absolutely really cool, and I'm thinking there are going to be so many more creative bursts going on in this Sims, because there's just going to be a lot more that we'll be able to do. And now I'm working on the living room, you see, and I love this living room. It's got, the little cozy fireplace and the curtains, and I carried over that kind of rock wall from the exterior of the house where the fireplace is onto the inside to make it look like one solid piece, like maybe that room was built around the fireplace. I think it turned out really nice, and you'll see some better images, some better captures of spaces in this house when I do get to the screenshots, but right now we're just going up into the bedroom, that loft style bedroom, and you can't see it where the roof there, you can see it a little bit, that you actually can get there and look down, and it's really kind of cool. This is a lonely sim, so at first I had the idea of just putting in a single size bed, but I decided, if I am going to play this, which I plan on, then I want to go ahead and have a bed that might be big enough for two, because you never know who Henry David is going to meet and who he might impress with his writing and his communication skills. And so I decided, let's just make sure there's a space for one more sim, just in case. And I really like this kind of idea that I had here on the side of the bathroom. I put this sort of little, I guess you would say like an open closet. It's kind of like a laundry area. I like having the folded clothes there on top and having one of them kind of pushed down a little bit, because it looks like, that's the pile that he grabbed his morning clothes from. It looks very used and very worn, very lived in, and I love it. And I wanted to keep things throughout the house kind of simple when it came to the decorations. There's a lot of clutter, but not so much in the way of to decorate it. I feel like the lodge or a cabin would be full of all sorts of things, but mainly just for, cozy sake, not necessarily to make it pretty or, attractive. But then again, what are you going to do when you're all by yourself if not decorate your house and play with the landscape? So We're actually nearing the end of this video, you guys, and it went by really fast. I hope you enjoyed the screenshots, and if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. I appreciate you all for coming and watching this build. And if you don't know who Henry David Thoreau is, make sure to go check him out and read some of his writing. Read Walden, read Solitude. One of my favorite quotes is in there. And I just really appreciate everybody for coming back and watching these videos. I am in school, so it takes me some time to get in and get a build done and edit it and everything. But I always make time to play The Sims, and I am going to make more videos. I have a bar coming up, hopefully I can get to today as well. Well, until next time, guys, thank you so much for coming by. Make sure to subscribe. Bye!